everyone, and welcome to Zeeve Web3 Voice, today's talk show, where we are diving into the future of institutional DeFi, privacy, and purpose-built blockchains. And today I'm excited to be joined by two pioneering teams who are shaping this future. Memento, a leader in digital asset infrastructure, and ZKsync, the builders behind the powerful ZK stack. Memento has built a sovereign ZK rollup, and we have Nicola Lanteri today, the CEO of Memento Blockchain, who would be talking about the Memento blockchain and the products on top of it. And powering this journey has been ZKsync's ZK Stack, one of the most advanced modular blockchain frameworks out there. And together with Zeeve as the RAS provider, I think these teams have pushed the envelope of what ZK infrastructure can do. So let's get into this collaboration and explore the design choices and see what it really takes to launch an institutional grade blockchain, as well as design and launch institutional grade use cases on top of blockchain. First of all, I would like to welcome Nicola Lanteri, CEO of Memento Blockchain, and Omar Azhar, who is the head of BD at ZKsync Era. And I would love to know more about you, a brief introduction about you, how your journey has been so far in Web3, and what you are building.
Thanks, Ravi. Maybe I'll start quickly. So thanks for the invite. So I'm Nicola Lanteri. I'm the CEO of Memento Blockchain. I'm Italian, but I'm actually based in Australia at the moment, so in Sydney. Background in traditional banking. I've spent about 15 years in investment banking, looking after front office and middle office. And previous to that, I was a consultant in KPMG, and I always worked in risk management and investment banking industries. Since 2019, I moved full time into blockchain, and that's where I joined Memento Blockchain in Singapore while I was living there. And since the last 6-7 years, we've been working with other technology partners to build what's today Memento ZK Chain. I'll let Omar introduce himself, and then we'll dive into the questions.
Hey, everyone.
That's great. I think, Omar.
Okay, thanks. Omar Azhar here, VP Head of Business Development for ZKsync. I've been with ZKsync now for about 3 years, pretty much from essentially the very beginning of when we moved on to ZKsync 2.0, which was Era, and now we have ZKsync 3.0, which is the Elastic Network and ZK Stack. Prior to this, my formal background is essentially in quant finance. I was at Ernst & Young here in New York for a little over 10 years, mostly working in financial services advisory. Did quite a bit of different things, from quantitative risk modeling for office and second line defense modelings, and then also for the last 5 years there, mostly working on large data infrastructure projects and AI machine learning. And throughout that course, I kind of got a pretty good sense of how the global world of finance works from a data and information, and also flow of data perspective. And having been in retail crypto since the ICO days, it eventually clicked to me that blockchains are definitely a solution for modern finance. And so that's when I decided to jump all in and started working at Matter Labs on ZKsync.
I think you both have a very rich financial background, which becomes very instrumental today when we see, Genius Act being passed by US, and DeFi already has been very strong, but I think institutional DeFi, especially with RWA and tokenization across different asset classes, I think is something which has picked up very well in the last 2 years. And I think still, I would say it's just a start. We are going to see massive adoption, especially when we talk about DeFi and institutional DeFi. So starting with Nicola, traditionally, institutions either used to resort to permission blockchains, or they used to deploy on public blockchains as a shared decentralized app. But then, the challenges were there. We have been there working with institutions, enterprise space for almost 5-6 years now. And we have seen that, challenges of privacy, data compliances, managing strict access controls, and various other facets to serve an enterprise use case. And you have, I think, one of the torchbearer here. You have launched Memento using the Prividium chain or Prividium chain stack. So, what kind of challenges you see from a privacy and compliance standpoint, and how Memento has been able to solve it using ZKsync Prividium stack?
Yeah, thanks. You're absolutely right. I mean, when it comes to compliance and privacy, I think these probably are the biggest challenge for institutional adoption of public blockchains. It's been a long journey to get where we are today. A lot of education with, a financial institution, and everything started really in 2020 for us when we, started to show to financial institution what's possible with blockchain. And obviously, at the beginning, public blockchain was seen as like a roadblock because of lack of privacy, compliance. You just log in with a MetaMask account, you don't know who is behind that account, and it's very hard to track it. So I think that's always been a problem. And on the other side, we've seen other financial institutions that have gone completely private, building their private chain for a while, because that's how they think they were addressing the issue with privacy and compliance, by building something that was just for themselves. But I think they soon realized that this wasn't working, because I mean, a public, so a blockchain needs to be accessible by all different institutions. Otherwise, it doesn't really make sense to have a public ledger if it's only used by yourself. So I think it became clear that there was potential for an interest for blockchain, and we found the right compromise together with ZKsync in building like a private permission chain that still settles and send the proofs to a public chain like Ethereum. It's interconnected to other chain thanks to cross-chain interoperability with different providers today in the market like Axela, Chainlink, and Layer 0. But we retain control of the application with a permission layer that we built together with ZKsync using Prividium. So we only enable users that have certain criteria or they've been whitelisted. Obviously, there's different way that you can do it, but we pretty much permission only certain users to use the platform. So there are addresses constrained, and when you can determine what user can do when they access the platform. So that's the level of permission that they would build. When it comes to privacy, I think it's very important as well. We want to make sure that the infrastructure is compliant with different regulation. We've been working very closely to the regulator in Singapore, but I think what we built satisfies probably most of the compliance requirements across the globe. And like, for example, the Block Explorer that we built together has features that only allows users to see their own data, so you can see others users' data. There's transparency because obviously the data is available there. So for example, when it comes to a regulator, we can give access to the regulator to see all the data in there, and we can build compliance directly on the chain itself. So the Prividium is not like an enterprise chain in the outdated sense like we see in Web 2. It's a next generation of compliance environment where the real financial institution can actually operate on chain. So that's how we really view the Memento Zika chain today.
No, I think Nicola, you have given some very interesting points, especially and I would say it's an excellent choice to use ZK stack or ZK rollup stack. One, we have worked with quite a few enterprises, especially working with the private blockchains of yesterday. Now, there was a massive trade-off, as you rightly pointed out. They could have privacy and data compliances easily, but at the same time, there was lack of decentralization. There was lack of interoperability with other chains. And we know that when we talk about use cases like tokenization and various other DeFi use cases, you do require retail participation as well. So you may have some permissioned actors, you may have some non-permissioned actors, and still you would like to operate in an environment where you can manage the privacy and access control, yet at the same time serve both B2B and B2C kind of play within the use case. So I think that's super interesting, and I think it makes a very good use case for launching such chains or such use cases using the latest modular stacks like ZK Stack. Omar, ZKsync, ZK Stack, I think, is the most mature ZK rollup stack today in the market, and it is powering a new wave of modular ZK chains. And as Nicola mentioned, Memento pushed it into new directions with permissioned access, private RPCs, ACLs, etc. So a bit about what ZK Stack is and how builders who are building use cases in the enterprise space can use it, and also how it makes the stack so adaptable for such enterprise use cases.
Yeah, sure. So ZKsync Stack essentially started off last summer in 2024. So it's relatively new. It's only a year old, but we've already seen pretty good success for it. The key behind it is that it is using ZK from the very core part of the overall architecture. And what that enables is verifiability of everything that is happening within the chain. And since you can verify with zero knowledge proofs, it allows you a lot of the customizations that we offer. For example, allows you to customize different things around the data availability, right? Which is, you can have a full rollup where all data is available on Ethereum L1, or you can run a Prividium, which is, what the Prividiums are built on top of and what Memento is building as well, where you kind of control where the data resides. You can have it be stored in your own personal server, on your own private servers in the cloud, or you could use a third-party DA layer like Eigen or Celestia or Avail. And so that modularity is really key behind ZKsync Stack, and especially the ability to store data and not have it be public, but have it be fully verifiable so everyone can see, okay, yes, you are running your own private chain, private layer 2, and no one can see your data. However, everything you're doing is verifiable because you are demonstrating the zero knowledge proofs to the rest of the world, shows that everything that you're doing within your chain is actually is accurate. There's no double spend, and the verifiability is the core component. The other thing is it gives you full ownership. You have complete ownership in terms of the design and the architecture and what you want to do with your chain. I think that's very powerful. And then we realized very quickly, we've been talking to many institutions, many banks, privacy and interoperability keep coming up as two key issues. And so we just, taking that from the market into account, we decided, we need to take the Prividiums another level. And so that's where the idea behind Prividiums came. We had been chatting with teams such as Memento for quite some time and realized that we needed to build that additional layers of privacy that makes it much, much easier for teams such as Memento to build what they need to build. And so that's where Prividiums came out, and we launched that in the spring. We worked directly with the Memento team to get feedback, and we will continue working with teams like Memento and Zeeve as well to continue building on Prividiums, continue building the feature set that it has. And I think that's really where ZKsync differentiates itself from other layer 2 solutions, is the privacy aspect, is the complete ownership and the verifiability that it gives you. The other thing I also want to point out is in previous private solutions, as you mentioned, there were significant trade-offs. Either it was not EVM, so it potentially used its own language, and you had to rebuild all the standards and all the smart contracts and the applications that are already available to you in the Ethereum world, or it didn't have performance. It would potentially be costly. It didn't have the transaction throughput that it could support. And then the other aspect was that interoperability. These were essentially siloed islands that you were creating. And so it was very hard to get your counterparties to come and build on top of it, because they really also relied on trusted operators. With ZKsync Stack, you aren't necessarily trusting the operator for valid transactions. The operator can't do invalid transactions on your behalf. The only worst thing that they could do is potentially censor transactions or liveliness, where the operator might go down. So those are additional areas that we are also working to resolve without losing, that privacy aspect that Prividiums give.
Absolutely. I think you have made some very interesting points. I think it builds a very solid case for using modular stack today to launch your own custom chain. And one of the thing that I would like to point out, ZKsync made an announcement regarding the new prover which is coming in, which is going to be again, highly scalable, at the same time reduce the cost. Because one of the challenge that not in the enterprise we have seen, but yeah, in the crypto native space we have seen that people still were worried about proving cost. But now with that also getting solved, I think it makes a very interesting proposition for anyone who is planning to launch an institutional chain.
Yeah, on the just one comment on the proving costs, right? So the ZK is on from a product standpoint is pretty much on an exponential curve in terms of performance. I've only been at ZKsync for 3 years, and each year there's a 10x improvement in performance. What does that mean? When we first launched ZKsync, the proving costs were potentially about 5 cents per transaction. Now it has gone down to a tenth of a penny. And with the new Airbender proof system, it'll go down to a basis point of a penny, right, for the average transaction. That means you can do a lot more with much cheaper hardware. You don't need massive GPU clusters to run the chain. You can run it on commodity GPUs. And eventually, our goal is that you can pretty much run the chain on, let's say, a cell phone.
Oh, I think that would be awesome. So Nicola, moving further, you have positioned Memento as an infrastructure for regulated DeFi and fund tokenization. I saw on your website ETF style funds that can be tokenized and put on chain. So what real world use cases you have been part of Dharma 2 project, permission staking. So where are you seeing traction, and how do you, how these use cases validate the platform design, the choice, and at the same time, what are your plans, to move further, whether in the use case space or getting more customers or more users joining your chain?
Yeah, so I think when we start a conversation with a financial institution and other asset manager, there was a clear demand for like a new asset to be distributed, and with Web 2 and the traditional finance, there are some limitation on what you can distribute using a typical financial instrument. And what we see today, like with real world asset becoming very popular, I think there is a lot of interest and demand from this asset manager to create new assets, and you can only distribute these using blockchain. So some example there we discussed with this asset manager, for example, real estate or arts or even wine to some extent. If you think of these real asset, traditionally they've been transacted as a whole piece. You have a real estate, a building, or you have a painting that gets exchanged between buyers. But with tokenization and with blockchain, you can actually tokenize this asset, fractionalize and distribute in to different investors. So I think there's an appetite for new asset that can increase the asset under management for traditional asset managers. So they're all looking for new way to increase their mass and their asset under management. Obviously, we can look at structured products as well. We were actually one of the first company to create a fully decentralized capital protected structured notes back in 2020. Funds on chain is obviously another use case that we've seen. It's something that it's probably easy for financial institution to test because they are very familiar with the process today of traditional funds. So what we're working with, some of the financial institutions, including Deutsche Bank, that's one of our partners, is to tokenize an existing fund and use the blockchain more as a distribution vehicle rather than an issuance. So that this way we still retain the legal and the ownership in the traditional world, So we remove the risk from smart contract and a new technology that's still not really battle tested for this type of use case, and we use the chain as a distribution. So I think it's an interesting use case to start with. So we start using the blockchain. We distribute not with different different chain, and we can fractionalize also the type of funds that we can build on chain. Then obviously, with blockchain and tokenization, there's unlimited possibilities. But I think the approach the financial institutions are taking is it's very cautious. They want to try with something that they're familiar with, funds and financial instruments that are simple, before they obviously go and explore other type of assets.
No, absolutely. I think one, it's a very interesting vision document or roadmap you have, and you are absolutely right. We are seeing tokenization in various asset classes, but the first, the assets which are already digital, the financial instruments and other digital assets, I think it's much easier. And then we are going to see a lot of physical assets. Some of the areas that we have seen traction is, one is commodities, whether it be graphite or antimony, some of the critical minerals, or precious metals like gold, etc. And at the same time, another area is more on the ESG side, carbon credits, carbon accounting. I think we are seeing a lot of traction there. So I think Omar can also add. So since now ZKsync with ZK Stack is focusing a lot on the enterprise space, so which are some of the use cases that you are seeing traction, and where you see which will drive more adoption within the blockchain space?
Yeah, I think the intersection between DeFi and TradFi is probably the biggest use case area that we're seeing. Obviously, that covers quite a large spectrum of different use cases. For example, we're seeing different countries wanting to launch their own official, let's say, stablecoin, and create their own, almost like use the layer 2 as an economic zone for them to start thinking of tokenization of their real estate, different types of payments that their stablecoin would bring to the on-chain world. And I think the stablecoins overall are probably a very big hot topic, particularly both from countries launching their official stablecoins, but then also I think corporates that want to modernize finance and treasury functions with stablecoins. I think you already have some of the major banks deploying that. For example, we saw JP Morgan launch their deposit token. I think Citi is also has announced that they're working on such a thing as well. So that's really a very big area that we're seeing very good traction in the market from many different sectors. It's not just TradFi and banks looking to deploy, but it's also now actual, more traditional large corporates that have thousands of bank accounts. They have many different banks that they work with, and they operate in many different jurisdictions and countries. And so having a ledger or moving a lot of that functionality on chain creates many different efficiencies, both from a settlement time, movement of money overall is significantly faster, and then just a cost perspective. And being able to do that in a fully private and compliant manner is really the sweet spot that we want to be operating in with ZKsync. I think one other thing that's interesting about the Memento chain, Nicola, I don't know if you want to go into this, but so there's the privacy aspect, but then there's the other aspect of also making it compliant, such as I think you essentially ensure that everyone operating within the chain has gone through a compliant KYC process, so people can be confident of who they're transacting with. Do you want to maybe also talk about a little bit about that? I think you guys have done a pretty novel mechanism for identity as well. I think identity is also a very big concept that is, it's an unsolved problem even in the traditional world because every bank has to do their own onboarding. So how does that kind of work with Memento?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's very important. I think, KYC and having like a digital identity, it's very important. I mean, we use one, mechanism using a soulbound token, but there are other ways, of course. I mean, for now, the soulbound token, I think, works for us. So this pretty much creates a digital identity for each users, and we use the softbound token to not only identify the user, but also give permission to the user to certain function. So we have actually two-layer permission. One is at infrastructure level, where we allow users to enter or not enter the infrastructure. And then there is a second level application level where users are identified and authorized to do certain permissions. So for example, we store citizenship, we store obviously personal details, we store social wealth. There's different factors that are typical of KYC infrastructure, but they're all stored on chain and off chain, obviously with cryptography and encryption in place. But this allows us, for example, to offer certain product just to accredited and sophisticated investors, or allow certain product just to non-US citizen. For example, if there's a specific regulation that allows us to offer certain product outside the US, so we can identify every user and offer them different type of products. And the softbound token, ideally, it's a feature that it's not done at customer level, but it's actually a global type of identity. So if I'm KYC with Deutsche Bank, I can use that softbound token to go and operate, for example, with Citibank and JP Morgan. I don't need to do this again. So that's really the end goal, to have a digital identity. It's like a passport that you can use anywhere. So that it's completely different to what happens today, where every time a client that deals with a different banks has to go through that KYC process over and over again.
No, I think that would be awesome. And Nicola, it's not just if you are going to different bank, you need to do the KYC again. Within the same bank, if you are availing of different products, if you're going from savings account to an investment account, you still need to do KYC again. So I think it's a nightmare today. And having a decentralized identity, which is portable across different departments within the bank and different organizations, I think would solve an age-old problem in the financial services space. So as a closing question, now that self-custody, we talked about identity, compliances, privacy, interoperability. So they are no longer trade-offs. They are expectations. They are needed for most of the use cases if you want to have larger adoption among the enterprises. So what is one piece of advice you would like to give to projects who are building in this case, either enterprises directly building into this space or startups who are helping enterprises navigate the benefits of blockchain to use within their use cases? So Nicola, starting with you.
Yeah, I finish. Yeah, I think something that we experience with Deutsche Bank and the other financial institution is that I think it's important for project to not build just one specific piece of the puzzle, but build the entire workflow. And as we mentioned, with the Memento Chain and Project Dama, we build the entire workflow from identity, access permission, obviously the core of the platform, with the infrastructure, the compliance, obviously the reporting, the custody. So the entire workflow. I think it's important to think at how the blockchain and the technology can be utilized for the entire workflow for banks, because otherwise, if we just solve one piece of the puzzle, they will still have to rely on legacy system in Web 2 or rely on other protocols. So I think it's important that you build for the entire workflow, so that you give a full solution to the banks and the other financial institutions. And obviously, it's very important, the compliance aspect. Again, I come from banking, so I know how, the compliance team, they always want to be 110% sure that, you tick all the boxes for compliance. So don't think compliance such as a patch in your build, but it has to be like the core of your build. Compliance has to be there.
No, absolutely. I think that's an excellent point you have made. So Omar, from ZKsync, ZK perspective, any builder who is using ZK Stack to build something in the institutional side, what is your advice to the builders?
I would say definitely get in touch. There's a lot of different customization options available. There's Prividium that's available as well. And, we'd love to we're constantly trying to get more feedback so we can make it more feature rich for all sorts of builders, whether you're building an app for retail, whether you're building an app for an enterprise, or whether you're building an app for an institution or government. Definitely get in touch with us. We would love to better understand your use case, what design parameters you would like to have. And see, if Prividium's out of the box is the right solution for you, or maybe there's other features that we don't currently have that maybe we should support. And we'd love to get that feedback and work directly with the builders to build what it is that exactly they need to be successful.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, so I think with that, we close the session. Thanks a lot, Omar, and thanks a lot, Nicola, for joining us. And I would reiterate again that we are very, very excited to be a RAS partner with Memento, a highly innovative project. I think will be a basis of many other projects that we are going to see in the institutional side. And we are also very excited to be an implementation partner for ZK Stack. So as Omar said, anyone who wants to launch an enterprise use case, I think ZK Stack is the most advanced, most mature stack today. And we being the leading RAS partner for ZKsync would be more than willing to help. And with that, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining. Keep building, keep smiling.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.